I don't claim to be an expert. I just claim to be a continuous learner. And I'm looking to perfect my craft throughout the rest of my life.
Hey, Skid Steer Nation. It is your host, Ryan Deemer, and it may be later in the year for you, but it is January 2nd, and this is the first podcast recording that I've done in 2024. Man, I can't believe we've already got 40-some episodes uploaded and a bunch of people listening and commenting. It is truly grateful for me. Looking back at the beginning this year, I was truly excited and grateful for everyone's input and, the little pat on the back we get for putting this together. It's not easy putting a podcast together, especially when it's not your full-time job. So keep sending those, keep giving us the reviews, keep sharing it with your friends. That gives us the motivation to keep going and drop these episodes for you guys. As always, this podcast is brought to you by none other than Skid Steer Nation. It is your online store that sells only high-quality, American-made attachments for your skid steer. We only partner with family-owned manufacturers. They put pride in the craftsmanship, and it really shows. Some of these guys have 2, 3, even 5-year warranties on their products. If that's not reliable for your business, I don't know what is. So head over to skidsteernation.com and check out your next attachment. Well, today's exciting, man. I've got a gentleman by the name of Austin Gray. He's on the show today. He's located in Colorado. He has a company called Bear Claw Land Services, which he specifically named that for a reason. And he also has started his own podcast called the Owner Operator Podcast, where he gets deep in the weeds on starting any type of service-based business, whether you're in the excavation industry, plumbing, chimney sweeping, pressure washing. Just a lot of tips and tricks on what it takes to start and operate a service-based business. So we're going to dive deep into all that and pick his brain on some things he does differently for marketing. So, Austin, welcome to the show.
Ryan, thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, man, we've been kind of texting back and forth for a few weeks now, trying to get this solidified between work schedules and holidays, and just kind of got dragged out, but we finally made it happen today.
Yeah, I'm excited to catch up here.
Yeah, me too. So Bear Claw Land Services, I mean, just like a lot of the guys that I get the pleasure of talking with, like you're a newer business, started in 2022, but unlike other guys that I talk to that are 2, 3 years old, like you've got some serious structure and some implementation already built into your business, and you've got a major growth phase that you're looking for at 2024. So I'm excited to dig into that. How did you even pick this industry back when you were thinking of something to do?
Well, thanks. This isn't something that I came right out of the gate and got a super fast start because I, just got lucky. I had a lot of experience in my 20s, just sort of learning different things. And then I also operated 2 small businesses before I got into this business before. And so this is my 3rd business here. And I've taken a lot of the things that I've learned from those last businesses about some things that worked really well for us, and then some things that didn't work so well. And I'm applying that, sort of just getting back to my roots. I grew up working for my dad's concrete business in the summers, and he was a general contractor as well. And so I grew up building homes. After I sold my last business, my wife and I bought 2 acres here in the mountains of Colorado. And my whole deal was, we agreed that, hey, I'm going to take 12 months. I'm going to focus on building my house, kind of taking an owner operator mindset, just building that sweat equity into the real estate, because it's really expensive to build out here. And it was really the only way we could pull it off. And so we agreed that my wife was just going to hold down her W-2. I was going to focus all my time on building. But what I was going to do, I knew I wanted to get back into the services or the trades. I wanted to sort of get back to my roots because I just naturally grew up around, people in the blue collar industries, and that's where I feel most comfortable. But I also wanted to apply everything I had learned in the past businesses, especially from a digital marketing perspective, to put that into sort of, like an unsexy service or trade business. Everybody wants to start a tech business right now, or an e-commerce business. That's like the hot thing. And I sort of just wanted to go against the grain and say, okay, I want to take everything I've learned, from a marketing perspective, and then apply that. And not only from a marketing, just from like like building a small business culture as well. We did some things well early on, and we also didn't do some things well. And yeah,
I got to interrupt you, man. What was the business that you had before you got into this?
so oddly enough, man, I've tried to start a lot of different businesses, especially in my 20s. I worked in software sales. I worked in real estate for a little bit. In my 20s, I tried to optimize for learning. I bought a bunch of courses too. um, I bought the courses on like how to learn Facebook ads, how to, grow a digital marketing agency, how to build websites, all that stuff. So I tried to start a digital marketing agency, did that for a little bit. Like I said, worked in software sales, and then ended up starting a shared office space here whenever I moved to Winter Park in Colorado. And so I partnered with another guy on that. It was basically just because I needed an office to work out of to do my software sales job. So we partnered on that. Long story short, I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but we ended up buying another business down on the Front Range in Denver. And so we bought that. It was the first time I didn't know anything about buying a business. But ultimately what I learned was we weren't scared and we just started. We jumped in head first. And we were able to sell that, ultimately get out of that. I just didn't want to be in Denver. I like being in the mountains. I grew up in a small town. And so we sold that one. It's not like we made a crazy amount of money, but we also didn't lose any money. So we came out of that with a ton of learning lessons. What I learned from that business is the business we had bought back in 2008 or 09, whenever they started, they worked really hard on building their website and invested a lot of time and effort and energy into SEO. And the day that we took over that business, it was very apparent to me that if you are ranked top on Google for a specific search term, you are going to get calls. Then it becomes about building a sales process around fielding those calls and then closing the deal for those potential customers. And so we got really good at the sales process at that point. And so that was something that I took from that first business was, one, you got to get Google My Business reviews. You got to invest in SEO. You got to have a great website if you want to compete in this digital landscape. And then you got to build a sales process around that. And we had a lot of fun building that. And so I've been able to apply all of those principles to learning. Sorry, my wife just walked in.
Good.
I've been able to apply all those principles to this business.
Yeah. I mean, so my background is the bar and restaurant industry. I was in that for 15 years. And then I ended up in sales and skid steer attachments and then ended up running that company. And like everybody I knew is like, you know nothing about manufacturing. Like, why do they promote you to the GM position? And I'm like, because business principles are business principles. $1 in equals $2. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a service, a product, whatever, like structural principles of a business, they go to any industry.
You're absolutely right. And I view this entrepreneurship game as a long-term game. So what is it? 2020, what is this year? 2024?
2024.
So I guess I'm like 3-4. This will be my 7th year in entrepreneurship. And by no means, like, to people who are listening, I don't claim to be an expert. I just claim to be a continuous learner. And I'm looking to perfect my craft throughout the rest of my life. So I'm 7 years into this thing. I've learned some things that I do think could help people in the early days, but I also realize I've got a ton to learn as an entrepreneur.
I'm the same way. I mean, I've got a little bit more years than you in entrepreneurship. I think I got about 15 years combined with all the different businesses. But like, I was just talking to you before the show, like my goal is to read every day. And when I don't mean like read like a fiction novel, I'm talking about something that helps me either personally or professionally grow and become better. Because the moment you quit learning is the moment you start dying.
Yes, I agree. I was really into reading there for a while. Like I said, towards the end of my 20s, but like since I've started this business, I also think there's a balance in, I see so many people get sucked into the content trap of just consuming content and reading blog posts and listening to podcasts. Like what I said it on our podcast episode this morning. I hope that the Owner Operator podcast, whenever people come to listen to that, if they're wanting to start a business, I literally hope that's the last podcast they have to listen to. before they go start taking action. So I think there's like this healthy balance between consuming enough content to learn enough about a subject, but if you don't apply that action, you're never going to get anywhere, right?
Yeah. I find that if I can read, and I've tried it morning, evenings. I find the morning reading is the most beneficial for me, whether it's an audio book in the gym or reading actual book, because it just gets my mind stirring, and it gets me focused and gets me out of that mundane lull of like, oh, I gotta go to work. I gotta, like, it's like, ooh, got some ideas, and you kind of get excited to go to the office. So I don't look at it as like I need to read all day. I just want like 10, 15 minutes. I keep one on the back of my toilet. I keep one next to the exercise bike. Like, I want to do it when I'm already doing something else and not have to carve out 20 minutes to do it.
Yeah, dude. Whenever you were saying that you're reading while you're on the exercise bike, like I think that's a life hack right there.
Well, I remember reading, God, what was it? The Compound Effect, or I think it was Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he talked about habit stacking. Like, once you can get into a routine of a new habit, the easiest way to create the next habit is to stack it on something you're already doing, so you're not starting from scratch. So like, if you brush your teeth every morning, the first thing in the morning, and then you follow that up with taking your vitamins, the habit of taking your vitamins become easier because you're already doing it with something that you've already got a habit of doing. So,
Yeah, for sure.
so yeah, I mean, and even with our business, like, I look at tasks the same way I look at habits for my personal life. I'm like, where can we stack different tasks to be more efficient and to make sure we don't forget to do them? And I think a lot of guys, it's so easy to get caught up in the runaround day to day and just get caught working in the business that we forget to take a step back and work on the business. But we have to be efficient in how we do that too.
Yes, I agree. I also think and like I've read all the entrepreneurship books, and I think a big reason why I chose the owner operator podcast, like as the name, is because I think right now there's a lot of pop entrepreneurship culture that a lot of people can get sucked into. And for people like you who have a ton of experience, or 15 years of experience, I believe that it's important to figure out ways to pull ourselves out of the business and work on it. But I think there's something that's missing right now in this whole content space. And at a certain point, you just got to be willing to get in there and get something up and off the ground.
Yeah.
Like when you're starting a business, that boulder has to go up that hill. And guess what? If you don't start pushing that boulder uphill yourself, you're never going to be able to recruit other people to help you push the boulder up the hill.
Nobody's ever going to start pushing it for you.
Yeah. And so like that's something that's like really has been very apparent to me over the last 18 months that I started my business. I just said screw it with all the pop entrepreneurship culture stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to start this business. I'm going to go sell the deals. I'm going to go knock on the doors. I'm going to close the contracts. I'm going to go fulfill the work. And I'm going to do that for as long as I have to do it until I find or meet the right people to start recruiting and come on board my team. And I get really frustrated with just seeing these people. Like I'm pretty active on Twitter or X. That's like my social media platform. I don't really mess with anything else. And I see all these people like wanting to sit back and play armchair quarterback. And it's just simply not the case if you want to start a business from the ground up. Like you got to grind in the beginning. And you have to make that decision that I'm starting this business and nobody else is going to start it for me. So I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to wake up earlier than all my competition. I'm going to wake up earlier than anybody else I have on my team. And I'm going to go get this thing going every single day. And it takes a lot of that until you get to the point to where other people will respect the fact of like what you're doing. And then you can recruit them and come on board the team. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, and nobody's talking about that right now. And it's important.
I think it's really important in the beginning too, is like find one avenue for marketing. Because the people that want to like do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this, like now you're scattered mentally, your message sucks. Like you're getting a little bit of result, but you're paying a ton of money because you're trying one Facebook ad that you don't know what you're doing with. And you're also trying a bunch of flyers. Like when we started Skid Steer Nation, like I remember COVID hit. I was like, all right, now's my time again. Cause I got laid off as a VP for an engineering company. And I was like, I'm going back to business for myself. I figured out which website platform I wanted to build. I got 2 manufacturers on board. I built a terrible looking website, launched it within 4 days. And then I was like, we're only doing Facebook ads. Like, I don't have time to learn Google, Facebook, YouTube. Like, I got just doing one. I can get to $1 million if I get really good at one thing. You know, you can get to $1 million. I think you could easily get to $500,000 in your industry on like just networking.
Oh,
If
easy.
you do it, if you do 20 phone calls a day, like I think you could easily get there.
Easy. Or just door knock. I think door knocking is something that is like widely overlooked, especially if you want to start. Like, and I was talking, we interviewed this pest control guy he's out of Grand Junction. I had him on the podcast this morning, and all they do is door-to-door sales in the beginning. Now they're doing like Google ads and whatnot, but it's something that like consistently drives business. It is like, it's just a math equation. If you knock 100 doors, he was telling me their conversion rate is like 6%. So out of every 100 doors they knock, they close 6 new contracts. And I think you can take that a step further. Look, I'm not the traditional, like, I'm not really into the like, pushy salesman door to door. I'm more into the, hey, knock on the door, take a flyer. Hey, my name's Austin. I'm starting a tree removal business. If you ever need any trees removed from this property, here's my flyer, my name, my contact info. Give me a call in the future. And if you ever come across any neighbors who need this service, like, feel free to pass along my info. Here's a couple flyers. It's like, nice to meet you.
And then like the mixture of that too is like you could do that same approach, like hitting every neighbor for everyone you do work for. Like there's a reason those roofing companies walk door to door in the neighborhoods after they replace a roof. Like it's not because they like paying that guy $20 an hour for no results. Like it obviously gets results. And it takes 20 minutes to walk up and down the street, hit 20, 30 houses after you do a project and I think there's a lot of low cost ways that companies that are struggling getting leads can easily and quickly generate leads and without spending a lot of money.
Absolutely.
So it's what's the old saying, Austin? You've got time or you got money. You got to spend one of them.
You do. And in the early days, man, I think we've created this culture, especially, I keep coming back to this like pop entrepreneurship culture because there's so many business books out there. Everybody wants to talk about businesses that scales, what doesn't. It's like, screw that, man. Sacrifice your time, be willing to go out, put in the hours, and just get the business going. Like, I feel like so many people overanalyze so much. And it's like, you don't really need to do that. All you need to do is start. And it's pretty straightforward how to go get business after that. You just go talk to people.
Yeah. What I find a lot of guys, and even myself, even this long into the journey, but especially at the very beginning of a journey, like it's so easy to get sucked into that imposter syndrome and not even realize that you're sabotaging yourself. So you almost need to have that mentor, guide, or friend that knows you real well that can slap you around in the face and get you back on track saying, you're good enough, go do it. Stop doubting yourself.
Well, you're so right about that, Ryan. And I've had some people along the way who have definitely helped me grow the business, from the perspective that you're talking about. Because if you're just doing everything from the beginning, you're always going to be a solo owner operator, right? But some of those more seasoned mentors have definitely helped me. Like, for example, like when we made our office manager hire, like we had to hire before revenue, but his point was you can pay somebody 25, $30 an hour and you can stop running around chasing the checks, and grabbing the checks and taking it to the bank. You look up and you've spent several hours out of your day when you could have been spending that time either selling new contracts, fulfilling the work, if that's the role you're taking in the beginning. But I think as an owner operator, the way I've approached this throughout different phases of business, I consistently ask myself, am I spending my time on things that the business needs me doing the most at this phase of business?
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting because you kind of put down in your answers, like you're hiring, because you've got 3 employees now full time, right? And your very first hire was nobody that generated you revenue, just freed up your time, was your office manager.
That's correct.
And when I read that, I got a big smile on my face because I have the same philosophy you do. Like the first thing I want is more time to focus on the things I'm really good at or the things that I really need to do. So like we've got a housekeeper here and I talked about replacing her with a different housekeeper that would also do all of the laundry and maybe cook some meals for us during the week and all that. And my fiance is like, that's ridiculous. We can do our own laundry. I'm like, I know, but that's 2-3 hours a week that I get back that I could focus on a revenue generating act instead of tasks around the house.
Dude, I'm 100% on board with you. I mean, we just started like hiring out some of our house cleaning as well. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
I hope to be there one of the days where I'm like, man, we could hire somebody in-house to cook meals too, because that would be sweet.
I don't think it's that much more money. When you start looking and doing the breakdown of it, but like again, back to relating this back to business and not keeping it like, oh God, these guys are too good to clean their house. But like, how many hours a week do you spend chasing down payments or, scheduling material or renting equipment or whatever that stuff is? Like, I love the idea of hiring that out first so you can focus on the sales and the work. And then you get so much work that you got to hire somebody to help you do the work.
Yes. And I think the thing that I would say is like, by no means am I too good to clean my own house.
No.
By no means. And I do not want people listening to this to think that it about you or about I, because knowing you little that I do, I know you're not that guy. The way that I think about it, especially in business, like this is a long, hard game. Not everybody does it for a reason because it's hard.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of consistent effort. So going back to that question that I consistently ask myself, am I spending my time on things that the business needs me to do? I also ask, like, is what I'm doing right now exciting to me? Because if I can bring energy to something, I know I'm going to push that boulder uphill. Like I'm full of energy. But dude, when I was working corporate, like I was falling asleep in the middle of the day. Since I've started my business, I don't think I've even thought about falling asleep during the waking hours of like 4 a.m. and 8 p.m. I go to bed pretty early, but like, I don't even think about falling asleep because it's so fun and it's so engaging.
Yeah.
So like what excites you in the business, figure out how to play in that lane. What doesn't excite you, figure out how to hire somebody else and who does get excited about that stuff.
So I have this exact same philosophy as you. I worded a little bit different, right? Like double down on your strengths and outsource your weaknesses. Imagine if they taught us that in school when we were younger. Instead, it's like, do your math harder. Like you need to learn it. You need to learn it. Like, no, I can hire somebody else to do my math for me. I really like drawing. Like, get really good at drawing, right? Like it's the same thing in business. Like you're not going to love every aspect of owning a business. Some of them you just have to deal with, but some of them you don't have to. Like I hate bookkeeping. And from the moment I started this business, I knew the first person I was hiring was a bookkeeper. Because not only is that 2 to 4 hours a week that I get back, but it's probably a dozen hours a week that I'm not in a crappy mood because I'm thinking about doing books or just got done doing books.
I hear you. So like early on, something that really gave me a ton of energy. So I buy this land, 2 acres up here. It's fully treed. It's got lodgepole pines all over it. It has to be cleared. I immediately like come up here on the weekends. I'm just working all day and all night. I rent a skid steer, I rent a mini excavator, and I'm just having so much fun. Because when I was in like 7th grade, I can't remember if it was the summer before or after 7th grade, my dad threw me the keys to a skid steer. I was working for him in the summers. He had bought several acres. He wanted to clear the back pasture. So he threw me the keys to the skid steer and a chainsaw, and he's like, go clear it. Never operated a skid steer before, just gave me free reins to go figure it out. I started operating, figured it out. And then I operated my dad always had a Bobcat skid steer and a little mini X. And every time I would work with him in the summer, that was like my favorite thing to do. So I get to the land clearing portion up here and I'm like, this is so much fun. Like I freaking love doing this stuff. So the thought popped in my head, how do I start a business doing this? Like screw waiting 12 months, to figure out where the opportunity is. I just want to go like clear land and like cut down dead trees and all of that. And so early on, I realized that, dude, I really just enjoy like being in the skid steer and operating. And so that was one of my decisions as to why I chose to hire an office manager as our first hire, because I didn't want to be sitting behind a computer all day. I wanted to be out in the field. And I knew that if I was out in the field, that was a great use of my time because I could recruit people, and it's like I met our lead operator at the Shell station filling up diesel, but I never would have met him had I not been in the field doing the thing.
Right.
Same thing with our first general labor hire. Like I met the dude at Ace because I was out there getting supplies But everybody always asks me, like, how do you find your first hire? I'm like, you just got to get in the market. You got to get in the game.
So I'm a firm believer that you already know your first hire, whether it's an acquaintance, a friend, somebody you met along the way. Like the person that's going to help you grow your business first, you already know they're already in your network somewhere.
That was true for me as well.
Yep. And if anyone that's looking at needing to hire somebody, like I always, the first thing I do is say, hey, take an hour or two and just start making a list of all the people you know that might be able to be a help for you. And either they're going to be the one that helps you or they're going to connect you with somebody like, oh, I kind of forgot Ronnie does that. And then boom, there you go.
Yes, agreed.
But there's zero reason for a company with less than 30 employees to be using Indeed for hiring. Like, go use your network, man.
Yes, definitely.
Go use your network. So, all right. So you get this thing off the ground. You want to do more of it. You hire an office manager. You start growing your team, and you're getting government contracts as a sub. But you're also staying busy with some driveway repair. And what was the other one that you kind of found as a niche?
Yeah, the niche out here that I jumped into. So I'll kind of take you back to the beginning. I was clearing my land, 2 acres here. Neighbors were building a house. So I walk down there, I figure out who the builder is. I call up the builder and I'm like, hey, I got a skid steer on rent. If you need help with anything, let me know. And just left it at that. And he's like, well, we actually need some dirt over there. So I went, drove around, found another excavation site, talked to the contractor, asked him if he had room or asked him if he had anywhere to take the dirt. Didn't. So I exported the dirt, called around, found some trucking subcontractors. I don't have a business at this point. I'm just like solving things as we go, right? Found a trucking subcontractor, asked him if he could truck dirt. So I called the builder back, said, hey, it's going to be this much for trucking. Duh, he already knows. He's been in the market for 30 years, right? He knows how much trucking is. So I billed him directly for trucking. And then I just told him, hey, I'll operate my skid steer for $100 an hour. You know, I think people in the early days like overthink how to price or bid jobs. I'm just such a proponent of just start hourly. Figure out what it would be worth for you and that machine to go work hourly if that gets you excited. And $100 an hour to operate a skid steer is way too cheap. I'll tell you that right now. But it's way more important to get the first job. So I went, did that. I think I had like, I don't know, I ended up like moving a bunch of dirt because they had to have a bunch of fill for this area. I billed him like $900 for like 9 hours. The most important thing was that I asked for a 5-star Google review at that point. So in the meanwhile, I had submitted my request for Google My Business, and I had threw together a quick website offering the services that I thought I was going to be offering. So I got the first Google review and then leveraged friends and family at that point, found out there was another friend of a friend who owned a lot in a neighboring neighborhood to where I had my property. And he told me that he got a letter from the HOA. It's like, ding, ding, ding. There's an opportunity if homeowners are getting a letter from the HOA mandating something. So the HOA was mandating that these homeowners clean up their property from dead wood and brush and stuff like that for fire mitigation. We have wildfires out here in the West. And so a lot of people are taking it very seriously to clean up their properties and remove dead wood. So immediately it was like opportunity went off at that point. So I went, bumped my prices up to $150 an hour at that point, quoted that guy hourly. I had bought a trailer to build my house. And so I just took the trailer over, removed all this brush, loaded it up, took it to the dump, charged him the dump fee. And once again, asked for the 5-star review. Here's something that's very important though. It's like, if you don't get the 5-star review on the first ask, you got to ask again. I followed up 3 times with that guy. And I'll sit here and tell you, like, everybody wants to talk about success stories. I followed up 3 times and that guy told me, oh yeah, I'll leave it right now. Guy never left me a review. So you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. But the important piece is, it's like, I've done 2 jobs at this point, got 1 review, didn't get a review on the second one. But you just keep going at that point.
I think it's the same thing with estimates too. Like my friend started a pressure washing business 4 or 5 years ago. And the first year he did mediocre. And the next year he's like, hey man, you want to like, and I was like, yeah, let me help you with this. Right. And I was like, what's your sales process? And they didn't really have one. So I implemented one thing and it tripled his business that year. I said, you do not give up on a customer that you gave an estimate to until you've called and either spoke to them or left a voicemail 5 or 6 times. They were calling once, maybe twice, and that was it. Right. And he couldn't believe I actually had him track, like, you couldn't believe how many of the sales closed on the fourth, fifth, or sixth phone call. Like, oh God, I'm so glad you called. I was waiting for you to, I kept meaning to call you, but the kids like, it's your priority to get the work. It's not their priority to call. And it's just a matter of, you just got to keep going until you connect.
Yeah. And it's pretty straightforward. It's like, hey, this is Austin. I sent you the estimate last week. I just wanted to make sure that you received it.
Yeah. Simple.
And then it just puts it back to the top of their mind. Oh yeah, I received it. I know I need to get back to you. Is there anything else that I can get you right now? Oh yeah, I was actually wondering, like, are you going to be, like what kind of fill material is there? I don't know. Like sometimes there's like blockages in customers' mind. And I think if you're just like present with them, then you can answer those questions. But
yeah,
if you just let
okay,
them,
like, and even like in our business, like I'll give a guy an estimate for, a stump grinder. It's 20 grand. I'll follow up once or twice. And then finally he admits, he's like, well, I was just kind of getting pricing out and I got to see if I can win this contract first. And I'm like, when is the contract and all that? It's like, well, not until next month. I'm like, great. So when would you like me to call you back to follow up to see if you got the contract? Like, ask for that. Like, is it okay if I call you back in 4 weeks? Like, I want to wait till the kids are out of school. Great. Can I call you in May about, like, they'll say yes. Put it on your calendar. Call them again in May. They'll love that you remember to call them.
absolutely they will.
Yeah. Too many times we just kind of let the sales process do its own thing and we don't guide it.
I would agree with that. And, a lot of people feel like, I think sometimes they feel like they're being pushy, but people respect people who do what they say they're going to do.
Yep.
And if you tell somebody that you're going to call them in May and then you call them, you just earned so much more of their
100%. So I'm a firm believer, like, for this, especially for the excavation industry, there's three things that everybody wants to get better at, right? You've got marketing / lead generation. You've got the estimates, and then you have the sales. And I think if you like, those three things are probably the most important thing, because if you have customers and you're able to get estimates and you're able to close those, that's money in your pocket. So it's like the 3 steps to a successful excavation company on the front line. And when I start working with people with our consulting, I always start with the sales process. And they're always like, yeah, but I need more leads. And I'm like, yeah, but if you're not closing the leads you have, then it's irrelevant to go get more of them. And we dial in the sales process first, because selling a high ticket product is way different than a pair of tennis shoes at the mall.
It is 100%. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on like the sales process, but kind of going back to this like owner operator mindset. In my mind, like answering the phone,
You could make so much money just answering the phone
and being pleasant over the phone.
and saying your business name and not hello.
Bear Claw Land Services, this is Austin. How may I help you?
Your buddies will understand if you say it to them. It's okay.
Dude, I got to the point to where I'm like, I don't care. Like my personal cell phone is everything. I'm all in on this business at this point. I have like, I literally wear a t-shirt and a sweatshirt every single day of the week with our phone number at the very top in orange on the back and our services listed. I wear it to the gym. I wear it out to eat. I don't care. I'm growing this business one way or the other, and I'm not going to be outworked or outmarketed. And so it's like you do that, you put your phone number, you put yard signs up, you do the Google My Business stuff, and people call. And then if you just answer the phone and then show up when they ask you to show up for the estimate, it goes so far. But anyways, I get fired up about this stuff if you can't hear it in my voice. I'm curious to hear your thought process on how you coach people in the excavation industry for the sales process.
So just to give you a quick high level overview of it, like the first thing we look at is the pre-qualifying questions, and you'll be shocked at how many people don't have them. Like as an owner operator, your time is the most valuable asset you own. So for you to spend an hour driving to give an estimate and then 30 minutes there, then driving back for an hour, and it's a waste because the guy doesn't have the budget or you could have spent 5 minutes asking really good questions and getting a lot of information before you even committed to going to give that estimate. So the pre-qualifying questions to me is by far, it's the most important thing because it saves your time and it gives you a lot of insider information on your potential customer, right? Because people buy solutions, they're not buying your service. So once you know what the real pain is that they have, you sell them the solution to their pain, not the land clearing, right? But then you have a process of that of like, hey, presenting the estimate, asking them if there's any questions for that, having a list of rebuttals for where they you know, kind of looping back. We kind of create like a loop process where you just keep looping back and answering questions and going back for the ask, going back for the ask, right? Like if you don't ask for it, they can never tell you yes. And then using the information they provided you during the estimate phase to answer the questions so it connects with them. Right. So if they're building the dream property for their retirement and they need the property cleared for that, you're not selling tree removal. You're selling their retirement home site. So speak in that language, you know, find ways to mix that into the conversation. You know, if they're building a pond because they've got grandkids that never visit, then you're selling them time with the grandkid, not a pond. Like, but if you don't ask the questions up front, you don't know what they really want.
Agreed. Agreed with that 100%. And, you know, something that I do in site walks is like, I'll take a notebook, pen and paper. Old people love that, especially if you're young.
Mm-hmm.
They love that you're not texting on their phone. If they see you taking notes on parts where they're talking about, and it's like, I can't tell you how many times people have told me like, oh, this last job we finished up of the year, this lady said, this property is third generation. My grandfather planted this tree. So whatever you do not hit the tree. Right. So at that point I said, can I have 1 minute? Walked to my truck, grabbed a ribbon, and I marked that tree. And I made sure to convey that in the notes to the crew. Like, you're not to get anywhere within a 10-foot radius of this tree. Yeah. And I think just like showing people that you're listening to them, to your point, like people just want to be heard. It doesn't matter if it's business, life, anything. People just want to be heard.
Oh, I always say this all the time. You could go to a networking event or a party, right? And if you never do anything but ask questions to somebody, so all you do is ask this. If all I did, Austin, was ask you questions at a party, you would leave that party and go, man, I love Ryan. He's a great guy. You know nothing about me because all we did was talk about you. But I guarantee you'd be like, dude, he's awesome. I really like him. People love talking about themselves.
Oh, it's true, man. It's like you're having me on this podcast. You're asking me all these questions. I love Ryan Deemer.
But as a business owner, we got to remember, like, it's not about us. It's about them. So we have to
for sure.
We have to flip that switch in our head that goes from talking about our services and having what I call verbal diarrhea of what we can and can't do to just asking questions and understanding what they really need, making sure that you can connect with them and provide with them what they need. And if you can't, then connect them with the guy down the road that can, because now you're going to improve your network with other contractors in your area too.
I don't know why, but contractors, generally speaking, are the worst about, I don't remember what you said, verbal diarrhea.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean by that, because it's like when I was building this house and I was subbing things out, it's like, dude, I don't really care how you put that boiler in. I just want the boiler in and I want it to work. I don't care what all the mumbo jumbo, defibrillator, actuator, all this crap. I don't care what settings you have to put it in. I just want my house to be warm and I want my water to be hot. So if you can just listen to me as the customer on that and not spill all this, like, well, we're going to dig it 18 inches down. The customer doesn't care. They just want the final product.
Yeah. And some customers do care, but that's, again, back to the pre-qualifying questions. Like, how in depth would you like me to go into the process, or do you just want to learn about the finished result? Give them the choice, right?
Sure.
And I'm a big proponent of, like, when you go on site, if you ask the questions on the phone, you say, okay, this is a valuable lead, you go do the estimate. I'm a huge proponent of, like, giving them the step-by-step of what that time on their property with them looks like before you even do a thing, right? You shake hands, you say hi, like, here's what I like to do. I'd like to walk the property with you. I'd like to take some notes. I'd like to ask you questions along the way. I need this, and then take a little time. Then we can talk about the scope of the work and the cost and the time frame. Does that sound good to you? And, like, they say yes. And then I ask them questions throughout the whole process where I know the answer is yes. Is it okay if I explain to you how we remove this tree? Yes. 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 You've programmed them to tell you yes. And the likelihood of them signing your bid, if they're financially able to is substantially higher than you saying, yeah, I can do that.
You have read all the sales books, haven't you?
I mean, I've read them. Yeah, absolutely. But I've also, we've used it to try it. And my God, it just makes people feel like they're in control. Cause like a lot of people know nothing about excavation services and we feel like we're at the mercy of the owner of the company. And we hope to God we're picking the right one. Right. So giving the customer some power, some control in the conversation just makes them feel comfortable in a situation they know nothing about.
Yes, agreed.
So you tried digital marketing before you got into excavation. You fell in love with digital marketing. You and I are kindred spirits in that regard. And then you took that and applied it to your service-based business. I think you used all capital letters talking about Google My Business and a website, and it's the best $2,000, $3,000 you'll spend up front on a business. I also agree with you, but like walk me through what you would do if you don't have much of an online presence for your business.
Okay. I'll walk you through the process, but I want to start with the why. And the why is because right now, in this day and age, there are a lot of baby boomer owned businesses right now. Those businesses own a lot of market share. Pick any industry, pick pest control, pick excavating, pick tree removal, pick snow removal, you name it. A lot of the businesses that control the market share are owned by people who are at retirement age. They have built a business without having to invest in digital marketing 20, 30 years ago. It just didn't exist. They've built this off of guerrilla marketing principles, word of mouth. Now it's, in some cases like a good old boys club sort of thing. What you cannot deny is time is going to continue to go on. And as time continues to go on and these people approach retirement age, they're either going to shut down their business or they're going to sell their business, which opens up a ton of opportunity for people who are willing to start these service-based businesses. So let's go through the example of if that owner shuts down. Let's say that owner owns a $10 million excavation business and they have all the sewer and water contracts in the area. That business shuts down, owner retires. What happens to all those contracts? They're out on the open market for bid. So if you start a business right now, and if you have an online presence, likely what's going to happen is whoever is at that local jurisdiction giving out that sewer or water bid, they're going to go to Google and they're going to Google excavation contractors. So if you show up first on Google, you're going to get a call. This is exactly what happened when we landed the 2 federal projects this year. So I'm not just some guy talking about theory. This is literally what happened. And then in the second case, if that owner sells the business, there's a 50-50 chance for whoever buys that business. Like right now we see a ton of private equity coming in and buying up these old baby boomer based businesses. There's a good chance that that person is not going to know anything about the industry. And there's also a good chance that those employees just leave a new owner, especially if he's like a finance guy coming into an excavation company trying to sit at the desk and play armchair quarterback. You don't earn respect in the excavation industry that way.
No.
So that's sort of like my hypothesis here. And as to why I wanted to get back into the trades and service businesses, because there is so much opportunity in every single local market right now. If you can establish a digital presence right now, and if you can go get jobs through guerrilla marketing, through door knocking, through leveraging your local networks, and then get Google My Business reviews, you are building a reputation online to increase the likelihood now and in the future of getting those calls whenever people, like I just mentioned, Google excavation company or tree removal company.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. Yeah, I completely agree with you. In fact, I think it was on Twitter that I saw this study that was showing the number of baby boomer service business owners that see it as a way of them making money and not as an asset, and they just close it. And in like excavation companies, you can go to an auction site and every day there's some excavation company liquidating their fleet of equipment. So they're viewing their assets as assets, but they're not viewing their business as an asset. Like, who gets the list of customers? Right? I mean, so there's just a massive market to either go in and acquire some of these companies or to fill the gap when they start closing?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. Your podcast really intrigues me because I love that you get into the weeds on what it's like to be an owner operator, and like you're not industry specific, you're service business basic. But I'm a firm believer. I'm like, I think I was just talking to my friend on New Year's Eve. And I was like, I honest to God think in 14 days and $1,200, I can start a service based business in our area and have 5 customers lined up to take those services. And I don't think it'd be that hard to do at all.
I don't either. Like, and I think that's the hardest thing for me right now is I want to start a business in every single service industry because I see so much opportunity, especially right in my backyard. Like just go and Google any random service. Now, if you live in like a big metro area like Denver or, Austin, Texas or Nashville or Seattle, like there's going to be people who are doing this and they've figured it out. But if you're in like a smaller, like growing town, like outside of one of those areas, this game is ripe right now. Like there is so much opportunity. And so, yes, to your point, like on my podcast, like, I bring guys in from like, I've had a landscaping guy, I've had a dumpster rental guy, had a pest control guy this morning. I had a cleaning business, but like the principles are the same. So going back to your question, I'd like to dive back into that step-by-step process if you're open to that.
100%.
But I believe that like the principles are the same. And it doesn't change whether you're doing excavation, tree removal, land clearing, any of those services I just mentioned earlier. If you build a website and if you open up a Google My Business profile. Now, here's a tip that I've learned, especially from the shared office space. I'll tell you where this came from. When I had my shared office space down in Denver, there was a cleaning business owner. He was doing like $4 million a year in top line revenue. And I asked him how he started. And he's like, well, I have my Google My Business office address here at the co-working space. Well, it just so happened that was in like a very busy area close to downtown Denver. He's like, I get calls just off of that Google My Business based off the fact that we are like optimized on our location in relation to where these big apartment complexes are. So then it was like opportunity bill came off in my mind. I see a lot of contractors putting their Google My Business out at their house, like out in, the boonies. If you can put your Google My Business account on Main Street, go pay someone like $50 a month to office out of their office and just get your mail there. Set up your Google My Business at a centralized location. You immediately build trust with people whenever they search your terms.
We found out the hard way that because we had a customer in the excavation industry, he was located, 18 miles outside of the town he was doing all the work in. And he was like 3rd page ranking on Google My Business. All we did was we removed his service address because as a service-based business, they do not require you to have an address if nobody can come to your location. So we removed his address from the profile and then got really specific with the cities. And we just took like the pin of like, hey, Peoria, Illinois here. What are the 9 outlying cities around it? And we just made the service area as tight as we could to Peoria. And then like 4 days later, he was number 4 in the Google My Business rankings once Google stopped dinging him for being 18 miles outside of Peoria.
Got it. That's very interesting.
That's the other thing too. Like if you don't want to go share a space with somebody, just remove your address and get real focused on on your location area because you can put like 10 or 15 locations that you serve in your profile.
Okay. That's interesting. I was also talking so that dumpster rental guy I had on my podcast, he's really into local SEO. And what he was saying is like, whatever you update on your Google My Business, if you update that on your website, meaning like Peoria, Illinois, if you were to say Peoria, Illinois, and you were an excavation contractor or a landscaping contractor, like what he was telling me is go to your website and have your website guy or gal build a specific page that says Peoria, Illinois, landscaping contractor. And then whenever Google My Business and the website talk together, that's when they start optimizing it. That was like the best way I could understand.
There's a guy down in Texas, and what was it? Was it just texaslandclearing.com? I can't remember the name of his exact website, but he has like 97 pages on his website, and all it is a duplicate page of like every page is the same except one is for every city in his service area.
Who is that? I'm curious.
I think it was like Texas Land Clearing, but I mean, it's the same principles. Like he had like 100 pages, and every page we talked about land clearing, but it talked about land clearing in Dallas, Texas, or San Antonio, Texas, or McKinney, Texas, and not just generalized land clearing for the state of Texas.
I'm on his website right now. Yes, you're right. That's crazy. He's got all the county all the different county pages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a good one to study. I bet you he ranks high in a lot of those different service areas. So anybody listening to this, go to texaslandclearing.com and you can kind of see how they've structured it. Look, the websites don't have to be sexy.
No, not
the
at all.
content is what's important. And so kind of going back to your initial question, the step-by-step process, with this business, like I used to do everything myself, but I realized I have a choice. I can either take an owner operator mindset or I can take a solo owner operator mindset. I've never wanted to be a solo owner operator mindset. I played team sports my whole life growing up. I'd rather build something fun and cool with a team of people. So yes, I take an owner operator mindset in the sense that I'm willing to do whatever my business needs me to do, but I'm not afraid to hire stuff out either. I used to build all my websites. I did them for my last two businesses. For this one, I said, you know what? It's not worth my time. I will literally spend 8 hours one day, like trying to update all the copy and do some design tweaks. Like I needed to remove myself from that. So I went and paid somebody like $2,500. They did like the initial 3 SEO pages for it. They set up my Google My Business account. And then I got a call 2 weeks later for tree removal because we were optimizing for that early on.
Yeah.
And it was proof in the pudding to me that, Austin, you don't need to do everything in the business. There are people who are better than you at their craft. So let them do their craft and just pay them a fair market.
Yeah. And then
value.
Austin, for you specifically, if you haven't done this already, I recommend you go do this. But anyone else out there listening, in addition to your Google My Business profile and like having some sort of a basic website, and with ChatGTP, it's so easy to write the content for your website today if you're going to build it yourself. But the third thing that I would recommend you do is what they call citations. Are you familiar with citations?
Yes, that was something they offered in the beginning. So they have like a citation burst through that agency, and we did it. And yeah, we got on all the stuff.
Anybody listening out there, a citation is basically your name, phone number, website address, listing on Facebook, on Yelp, on Yellow Pages, on Nextdoor, on any directory of companies on the internet. That's considered a site. That's what they call a citation. So as a local business, if you can get 20, 40, 100 citations, what that does is it tells Google, when it keeps seeing your name on all these different directories, this is a legitimate business. This is a legitimate business. And it just helps putting the ranking of your Google My Business profile higher and higher in Google Maps.
Yes, agreed. It's super important.
Yeah. And you can go to like Fiverr, Fiverr.com, and you can hire somebody to build you out 50 citations or 100 citations. And I think when we were doing it, I think it was like $50.
Yeah, it's not expensive.
Yeah. It's just a matter of being comfortable, being uncomfortable, that you don't have no clue what a citation is because you're an operator of a heavy equipment, and trusting that you can find somebody online that can do exactly what you need to do. So that's where we stall out, right? Our fear, because we know nothing about this.
Yeah. And I think the quicker you come to that conclusion that it's okay to know nothing about this, as long as I take some trusted recommendations from the network. I mean, I'm sure you have guys that you could point people to that could build somebody a website, get it up and going, optimize SEO. And likewise, I mean, the agency I've hired, like I've got a great partnership with them. Happy to introduce anybody to them as well. But the point being, like, there are people who are way smarter than, especially us as equipment operators, at doing the whole digital thing. And I'd just rather pay. I mean, it's $2,500. If you get an excavation business and you can't spend $2,500 on a website, it might be time to go back to
going for a
corporate.
long road.
Yeah. 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 Because you should be able to make that.
Like
yeah.
every breakdown's $5,000, right? Like
yeah, for sure.
5 if you're lucky.
Yeah, totally.
If you're lucky. So, yeah. So to you, social media is a necessary evil. You actually hired somebody to do all your Facebook and Instagram. I don't hate that idea, but I do notice I can tell when I look at a company's social media profiles that the owner's not involved. Like you can look at Skid Steer Nations and you're pretty positive that I have nothing to do with the way that thing gets posted. Like it loses that connection, that touch. Like I think we still need to go in there from time to time, once a week, once a month, something, and put some sort of a post that makes it relatable to, oh, Austin's having coffee while the sun comes up, getting ready to start his job, like some of the lifestyle things, and then let the agency handle the day-to-day stuff like that. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yes, I agree that I mean, that always builds trust. The more that you as an owner can add, like more of your personal touch. My perspective is like, I see social media primarily as people who are tire kickers, quite honestly. And I mean, I've tested this with other businesses, especially when I was doing my digital marketing agency. I'm doubling down on SEO because that's what pushes the needle. Social media, it's a necessary evil, in my opinion, because if you don't have it, people are like, what the heck? Is this business even a business?
Yeah.
But I just haven't gotten a ton of jobs. And maybe that's just me personally, with people who I've worked with from social media. So therefore, I'm not going to I spend maybe, I don't know, maybe like 2 minutes a month just like looking through our socials just to make sure they're not posting any like crazy content that's out of the league. Right. And my mom, she's on social media. So she actually will like send me if they ever have typos or anything. So shout out to my mom. If you're listening to this, thank you so much for what you do. But no, I don't spend any time managing our social. I think it's a complete waste of my time as an owner.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Different strokes for different folks, right? I know guys that have built very large businesses at the beginning just on Facebook. So again, you picked SEO and Google My Business. Back to what I said at the beginning of the show, right? Pick one horse and ride it.
Agreed. And so I guess what I would say is like, I pay somebody like $1,500 a month to manage all our social, and they also do our Google ads and Facebook ads. So like, we're always running an awareness Facebook ad, and we're always running some Google AdWords. And we're posting consistently. So what I'm not trying to say like, don't do it.
Right.
I'm just trying to say like, for me, and
be the one that does it.
You don't have to be the one that does it. And if that does excite you, do it. It's just not for me. I think it's a complete waste of my time, because what I end up doing is I end up doom scrolling, and you waste 30 minutes. It's like you sit down to take a crap, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to check my social. And then all of a sudden you're like, sitting there.
Yeah. So I learned a long time ago, I made a rule that I would only do social media marketing from my desktop, not from my phone.
Mm.
And then there's a Google Chrome plugin that you can install on your computer, and I think it's called Facebook Eradicator. So when I log into my Facebook account from my computer, I do not have a news feed. It just has a quote for the day, and there's nothing to scroll. So the only way you can go scroll anything is to actually go to a specific page.
Interesting.
So that saved me hours a week, because when I would log in to do marketing, I never got distracted by, oh, what's Johnny doing today? Like it never, because I never saw it. So I could go straight to my page. I could get straight to work. I could get all of our stuff done and get out of there. But
yeah,
again,
definitely.
it's finding the tools for you, right? Knowing your limitations and like what you got to use to get around it.
And going back to your point, like, I think there have been plenty of people who have just said, hey, I'm going to create a Facebook page and I'm going to be really active on it in my community. And I'm going to grow this business just specifically off Facebook and maybe some Facebook ads. And that works for some people.
Dude, I'll tell you right now, there's a guy, he specializes in selling tracks for skid steers.
Oh, I know about him.
Yeah, his business name is Tracka. I'm not even ashamed. Like, I talk to Ryan every now and then. His name's Ryan Hutto. This dude, he doesn't even need a website. Like, somebody posts in any group, hey, where's a great place to get tracks? I'm not kidding you. There's 15 people that say, oh, Ryan Hutto, Ryan Hutto, Ryan Hutto. Like, his phone's got to ring nonstop just from the quality service he's provided to so many people. Everybody and their brother recommends him on Facebook for anytime somebody's looking at tracks. I can't imagine how much time he's invested to get that response, but it's impressive at how well his group of people support him and promote him to everybody else on Facebook.
Yes. And I'd be interested to hear, like, in your business, because I know, e-commerce business, like some people will literally just build a business model off of scaling paid ads. It's like, how much does it cost me to run this ad? What's my conversion rate, and how much is my average ticket sale? So like, what have you focused on in your business, going back to that, like, pick a lane and get really good at it?
Yeah. So at the very beginning of the business, we focused strictly on Facebook paid advertising. It was, I had done enough lead gen advertising for the manufacturing company and then for other businesses when we dabbled in owning our own marketing agency. I knew Facebook ads really, really well. I didn't know Google very well, but I saw a lot of other businesses advertising on Google. So everyone's going left, I'm going right. I'm going straight to Facebook and I'm spending all my money on Facebook, right? So we were spending, I don't know, started out with $1,500 a month and $3,000 a month and $5,000 a month or whatever the number got to. And we did our first $1 million and the only money we spent on advertising was Facebook.
That's great.
Since then, I now have, like, we're maturing, right? We're older business. We're going into we're going into year 4 of business now, right? So now we have different metrics for, like, website traffic, organic, website traffic, Google paid, Facebook paid. So I'm separating out the metrics and not looking at it as one ball anymore. Like, I want to look at the individual pieces. So, I've been told this for years and I always shook my head like I knew it, but now I'm getting really laser focused in it. Like, you can't fix it or improve it if you don't track it, right? If you're not tracking, then you're just flying by night. So we're getting real granular in all of the data that we track in different areas, because let's say you see a switch in Facebook ads, Facebook cost per purchase doubles and Google cost per purchase drops 20%. Well, guess what I'm going to do with my Facebook ad budget? I'm putting it all in Google, right? Where if I don't separate dollars spent versus acquisition and all the metrics we track, then I'm not able to be nimble and move that budget around. But at the very beginning, we picked Facebook. That was my horse and that's what we rode. And we got into getting better at organic. So, like, I think more than half of our traffic now comes from organic.
Man, that's awesome. And was it specifically just because you had an expertise in that or experience in that, or was it because you had an inkling that your audience lived on Facebook?
So when we did the manufacturing company, we had Google ads running, and then we did Facebook lead gen advertising. And for years, we were doing Facebook lead gen, collecting name, phone number, email address of people, and then and then our salespeople would call them to sell the attachments or send them information, that whole sales process. But I had all the data on the people that were clicking skid steer attachment ads. So I wasn't starting from zero with the demographics or the ages or the interests. Like, I had it all because I built it for 7 years in the manufacturing company. So I was just able to take the information we knew about who was clicking on skid steer ads and build campaigns going to the website instead of a lead form to do that. So, like, and again, like, everyone's got a different story, right? Like, so some guys like promoting their business. Like, you might do a general ad on your excavation business. I like to do specific ads on specific products, right? Like, when we do a catalog ad where it just shows you whatever attachment it thinks you'll like, I feel like it's just not personable. Like, I can't connect with you. When I create an ad just for a grader attachment, I can write that so it resonates with you as a business owner, that it'll make you more money with your business. Is either way right? I don't know. This is the way I prefer.
Well, I think what's important is, especially what we're talking about right now, is, like, everybody has a different perspective. And I also believe that every industry is going to be a little bit different. And so testing a few things, or maybe talking to some other companies in that industry, like in a different local market, could be a good way to figure out, hey, like, what do you guys focus on? Do you want to start an excavation business? It's like, You just need to pick up the phone and go call builders, really.
Well, and then and again, if you're going to go Facebook route, like write a list of like 100 excavation companies in or around your area or in bigger cities around you that you've heard of, and then go to each one of their individual Facebook pages and then hit the About Us tab. And then there's a tab inside the About section called Transparency. If you click on the transparency ad, if they're running Facebook ads, you can literally go to the Facebook ads library and see the exact ad they're running.
Interesting.
So you can, I mean, you can educate yourself on what's working, or you can just go spy on your competitors to see if they're spending any money on Facebook. If you're in your area and there's 7 other guys and you go all 7 of them, none of them are spending ads on Facebook. I'd be like, that's where I'm going, right? Everyone's going left, I'm going right. It's a free audience because nobody else is marketing to them.
Have you worked with other excavation companies helping them run Facebook ads?
So we did a business called Throttle Up Marketing a couple of years ago where we were building out the websites, doing the Google My Business setup, getting the citations, and then working with them if they needed help with Facebook ads and all that. And what happened was all the calls that we'd have with the clients turned into like coaching calls about business that quit being about marketing. So like when my father got sick and I had to stop anything that wasn't Skid Steer Nation selling attachments because I had to focus on taking care of my family. When I got back into having some time available, we went the different route and created Groundbreaking Growth, which is more the coaching consulting, because that's what I saw the need from the market, from the guys we were doing marketing services for. Like, I'm not the best marketer. I just knew I could do a lot better than what most people are getting, especially the small businesses, because their budgets are $1,000 or less a month. You're not getting any attention from that big ad agency. So, but now we went more of the coaching consulting. So like, we'll teach you how to do marketing, set up your Google My Business, walk you through it. I've actually went into some accounts for clients and helped them dial it in. We will teach you on how to do the Facebook advertising if that's what you want to learn. But more along the lines, like we've just found that the need that most of the guys that connect with us, they just need business mentoring.
I mean, what have you seen? Just like you're pretty tied into this land services space. What do you see as the best form of marketing? Like if somebody was starting and I chose land services as a general term early by design because I had an inkling that we would be doing like land clearing related work, like which is what the fire mitigation actually is, or tree removal. But I wanted to keep it a little bit generalized because I didn't know if we were going to get into excavation or driveways or tree removal and which route we were going to go. If somebody's doing land services, what would you tell them when they're starting purely from a marketing perspective?
And I would tell you this, like there's a lot of guys out there that have been in business for 5 years that could go through this exact same process, right? Quit being the jack of all trades. Refuse to be one if you're not in business yet. Pick 1 to 3 core services that have a need in your market and it's expanding, right? Like if the population of your city is dwindling, then being the new home construction grading company probably isn't going to work out very well for you, right? So you got to find something that's growing in your area. And then I would just pound the bejesus out of just those few services. People are going to call you for other work and you can choose if you want to go do an estimate or not based on your schedule. But you've got to stay focused to like 1 to 2, 3 services tops, in my opinion. And then if I was going to market that, like I've talked to so many guys this last year and we get so caught up in the buzz of digital marketing that we forget about the power of the yard signs of the emails to HOAs or to like the grunt work that we don't want to do. So I just worked with a guy named Ben and he sent out 80 emails in 2 days to realtors and general contractors. And I was like, how many jobs did you get off that? And he's like, none. I said, that's kind of bummer. He's like, yeah, but I did get 2 jobs because they referred me to somebody else. Like you spell luck, WORK. That's what they spell it in Iowa, right? So even though that particular 80 emails didn't generate him business for the exact service he was trying to sell, it generated him, one bid was like a $15,000 bid. We know if he gets it or not. But again, it's doing the work, right? A Facebook ad and a post is great, but the yard sign, the emails, the phone calls, that's the stuff. I just think the more people get focused on the cool, trendy things, anyone that goes backwards and does the old school traditional things is going to be very successful because it's an empty area. Nobody's getting phone calls anymore.
Yeah. And another point, just to go off of that, like those 80 emails that he sent may not have equated to 2 jobs immediately. Or excuse me, may not have equated to jobs immediately other than the 2 referrals. You never know what just those 80 touch points will lead to in the future. Like when that real estate agent comes across, for example, like one of the jobs we just booked is like a $25,000 job for next year. We just ran out of time before the snow flew. It was because I had made a connection with a real estate agent back in June. And I just said, hey, we do fire mitigation here. If you ever come across any clients who, want to get that work done, just give me a call or pass along my information. Nothing came of that in June. Nothing came of it in July. Nothing came of it in August.
Yeah.
Not even September. But in October, she connected me with somebody who was purchasing a house and they were looking for fire mitigation. It turned into a $25,000 job that we booked on 2024 schedule.
And I feel like your business is a perfect example of what we've just been talking about, because your company is called Bear Claw Land Services. Yet when you introduce yourself, you tell them you specialize in fire mitigation, right? Like you're being remembered for the guy that does fire mitigation. What you probably have found out this last year is that when you say that, people also look at you and say, oh, do you also do, or can you do, right? Do customers ever ask you that?
Yes, all the time. I mean, like part of this fire mitigation thing is like hardscaping around the house, decreasing the vegetation. So it's like, hey, can you guys bring the gravel? Absolutely, we can't. Just call up a trucker.
If you would have told that customer, yeah, we do land services, they'd be like, oh, cool, thanks. No, because there's nothing that they can connect to because they don't do the work, right? So they don't even know what land services encompasses. So back to that whole having 1 to 2 core services that, we call it the elevator pitch, and I preach this all the time, but if you and I get in an elevator, we have 8 seconds for me to clearly tell you what I do. So you can go, cool, I got it. And if you don't figure that out, you're not going to remember me and you're never going to call me.
That's correct. Yeah. And it was something I contemplated big time in the early days. Like, do you choose a term that's general like that for a name? Because there's no doubt about it that, in my opinion, the best name would be like, if you're starting an excavation company in Colorado, like Colorado Excavation. It is so simple. People know where you are and what you do. And even more granular than that, it's like if you're in, what would you say, Peoria, Illinois earlier? Like, let's use that for example. Like if you're starting a plumbing business, like Peoria Plumbing. Well, do you do new construction or do you do maintenance? If you do maintenance, do PeoriaPlumbingMaintenance.com. And then there's your business, right? If you know that going in, I believe that that's like very, very powerful in creating that lane and just owning that and being the best in your market. In the beginning, I didn't know which route I was going to go. And I wanted to take this approach of gauging where the demand actually was, which is why I chose the name Land Services. But it's interesting you bring up this topic, Ryan. So would you, like if you were coaching me as a business in our stage, like what would you tell us to do from the generalization specialization?
Well, I mean, I think you've already got your specialization in fire mitigation, right? I think you talked about in the hardscape is a sub-service that you can get work because of the fire mitigation work that you get. The gravel driveway and entryway roadways, again, you're already on the property. It's easier to have you do it than somebody else. Maybe some tree limb removal and clearing if that's not part of your mitigation process. And then I would just, that would be my message. And the name of your business really doesn't matter, right? If they go to your website and you're the, Colorado Fire Mitigation Specialists, like Bear Claw is just the name of the company. So I would just continue doing what you're doing and like driving home that one core service and then making sure that the other services, they fit in. Like it's the same, you want to have the same customer, right? Like we sell skid steer attachments. My podcast is not about digital marketing. It's about excavation and we can talk about that, but it's always geared at excavation companies because I want to have the same customer. And I think that a lot of times we get so caught up in the idea of like, oh, we can make money doing culverts and we can make money doing French drains and we can make money putting in agricultural fencing. Well, now nobody knows who you are and what you do. You just got an expensive job because people call you and say, can you do this? And but they don't think you're going to be the best at it because you do everything.
So let me ask you this. In some of your marketing messaging, I've seen you use the term land services. Why did you choose land services versus like excavation as a term?
As far as me trying to find clients for our coaching company,
As
or
far
as
as
far as the stuff we write for the clients to help them get work?
as far as like the marketing copy that you're creating for this Skid Steer Nation podcast, and like when I come on the website.
Well, because again, like the business principles translate, right? So if you own a lawn care company right now, you're still in the land service industry. A lot of those guys eventually end up buying a mini skid steer to do other projects or to do fence installation. And sometimes those landscaping companies like that, they go from 2 guys and a shovel to 10 guys and 2 excavators pretty quickly. So, I mean, to me, it's like if you're doing dirt work, land services, like our strategies will help you. So I just wanted to make sure it was encompassing enough. And I think within our industry, you say land services, everybody that's in excavation knows what it means.
Okay.
It's to me, it's like speaking the language of the clients that you're trying to acquire. So if you get too technical in your in your marketing about your business and what fire mitigation is from a technical point of view, you're going to lose them, right? You get 3 seconds to get their attention. So follow the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. You have 3 seconds to get their attention. You have to connect with them. Like burning down a house resonates pretty bad with dead wood, right? Like, so be punchy, connect with them and speak in a way that they can understand you, and be educational in your approach, because a lot of these people don't do this work.
Understood.
I feel like I'm getting interviewed on my own show. I love it.
Oh, this is fun. This is like this is what we said before. Like we're gonna we had no preparation. We're just jumping on, and we knew
roll with it, man. We'll just go with it. But
we knew that we were just gonna riff on business.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a book by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth. And whether you read books or listen to books, I can't overestimate enough how important this book is to a business owner. Because the whole book is about putting in processes and following the franchise model, so you can remove yourself from simple day-to-day tasks and put, the way he words it, right, the lowest cost employee doing the highest output work you can. And when you start looking at your business, whether you're the only employee or you have 3 like yourself as a franchise, like it's amazing how many little things you can clean up and remove yourself from and train somebody that's duplicatable day in, week in, month in.
Yes, it's something we've been working on. Our office manager turned out to be a lot more than just an office manager. She's an absolute rock star, and she's just like another entrepreneur in our business. And so she's been super helpful on just like, hey, awesome, we need to document these processes. And so like one thing we worked on, we had this project like wrapping up our winter. We called it Hibernate Bear Claw, just going into the winter. And it was like, okay, what did we do all summer long that were just like super repetitive tasks? And so whenever we landed that federal project, like I had like 9 subcontractors on that job. And so it was like, and she, like I said, she was a rock star and she crushed it. But, she was like, onboarding subcontractors was a nightmare. You got to get your insurance, you got to get the name, phone number, payment details, like, especially for on the federal job, like we had to do a ton of paperwork on that. So we worked on a process like 2 weeks ago where we just put a subcontractor form on our website or a page with a form. And then the subcontractor goes, fills out the form, gets all the information. And then we use Zapier, a software that automates things on the back end. And we're able to like send them a DocuSign document. We're able to request their insurance and all of that. And so
I think you could probably go one step farther. And I'm almost positive that you could use JotForm.
Okay.
I think they can upload documents to that instead of you having to send requests.
Okay, we'll look into that. I wonder if JotForm integrates with. Wait, so JotForm would be just embedded on the website,
right? Or you'd have a separate page for you could just
okay.
It would take the place of the form, and then you could still use Zapier to be able to get notifications, send emails, the whole 9 yards.
Sweet.
But like that's my biggest thing now. Like we're at, because we've got a lot of processes. Like my friends around here, like it's like, you're amazing. Like you've got all this stuff dialed in. I'm like, yeah, but it's dialed in like 80%. So now we're picking one thing at a time, and like like that, like your onboarding process, like you've got one, right? You're 90% ahead of most other business owners. So now it's like, all right, how do we make the process as smooth as possible and get rid of like, because what if Zapier quits working for a day? You know, like there's all those little unknowns, right? So how do we clean it up to make it as smooth and crystal and minimize interaction and just say, hey, here's the form, you upload all the documents where we ask you to upload them, boom. And then you can use Zapier to create a new Google Drive folder. Inside the folder has like, you know, that's where I'm like, all right, that's where I want to get to is like, we've got a process. It's good. Now I want to make it great.
Yeah, definitely. Have you dialed in a process for your podcast yet?
Man, I'm in the process of it because we've got a production process, and we also have a guest outreach process, scheduling guests. So the big thing for me is, no offense to our previous guests, you know, I love meeting every one of them, but I feel like we're talking to a lot of the same people that have been in business 1 to 3 years. They're doing 2 to 400,000. They may have one, maybe two employees, and like that's what we talk to. And it's like week in, week out. It's the same guy, right? So like to me, I'm like, hey, we need to change our process. We can go out and find guys that have 4 crews because maybe they've got insight where you at a 500,000 this year or 600,000, whatever it was, can learn to get to the million five. Like we're missing that gap for that next step. Like we're doing great work for the guys doing sub 250, sub 300. But what about the audience that's already at 300 or up to 2 million, right? Like what there's definitely things they can still take away from our calls, right? Like, oh, the Google My Business is ours dialed in, things like that. But what about the culture and the hiring and the management of 4 teams? And like, I feel like there's just a gap in the market that we're missing by always getting the younger, newer entrepreneurs. And I want to find a way to blend and have a mix of all of them. Like I want guys in the first 3 years, I want guys in the first 6 years, and I want guys that have been around for 6, 10, 15 years that have found better ways. You know, they found the right way to skin the cat for them.
Dude, do you know who you should interview?
Who's that?
Garrett Williams. Have you heard of him?
No.
I'll make an introduction after this,
please.
But he'd be perfect for that. He's a young kid, but they're at like 5 million in revenue this year. He's got, I don't know, he's got a bunch of equipment, bunch of trucks, bunch of crew members. And I just had him on the podcast last week, but he's all on YouTube. So his company is G&M Outdoor Services, but I've learned a lot from watching that guy. That guy's going to be very, very successful. And I think he's 20, I think he might be like 24, 25 years old.
Good for him, man. If you're doing 5 mil, like you're a different category than most people. You have a whole different set of problems than what you have, right? Like
absolutely.
Like you think cash flow sucks now, wait till you're at 5 million because now you've got retention that they're holding back on large projects. So you're waiting a year to get the last 8, 10% of the payment because it's a project completion retention hold. You've got 5 times the equipment, 5 times the insurance. Cash flow becomes an SOB real fast when you scale that large.
Yeah. So what do you think, like somebody in my phase, right? I've got, 3 people on our team, just 1 crew. You know our numbers. And it sounds like the other people you've had on the podcast are in similar phase. Like, what would you tell me to double that business next year? What would I need to do?
So you do want to double your business?
I'm just saying hypothetically. No, like, let's say I come to.
Yeah, but success is where, there's a lot of guys that would love to be where you're at and live that life for the next 20 years. So like, you want to double your business. Like, what advice would I give you to double your business? Is what you're asking.
I haven't made that decision yet, actually. Okay. Like I'm very committed to just doing what's in front of us right now. And that's why you started this call with like, what are your 2024 goals? And I'm like, dude, I didn't really set any because like, I've just been busting my butt since I started this business back in 22. What I really, really want with this business is for my team members to enjoy coming to work. Mm-hmm. I enjoy the fact that we work 7 months out of the year and I've got the winter time off. I've got a young girl, a daughter. I like having a seasonal business. I like the fact that we can still pay our salaries throughout the winter.
Yeah.
So I haven't made the decision. Like I'm not saying I want to double or triple this business yet. I just want to do the next thing. If I did, what would you tell me?
I really think anyone that has 3 employees like yourself, and granted, you've got office staff and then you've got guys in the field. I think that worst case scenario, you could double your business and only have to hire one more person, and then might have to get some specific attachments or one more machine to be able to stay busy. But there's a lot of projects that you've done, I guarantee, that were on the smaller side of what's available in that realm. And I would get laser focused on getting really clean and being able to get in and out on projects and not sacrificing quality to the customer. But I guarantee you've got 20% of your time that you could cut out of every job on average. Right. So if you take 20% of that and go find more work, and then you find jobs at a $10, $15, $20,000 price instead of a $5, $7, $10,000 price, there's your double. And the bigger jobs that pay more, they're easier because the equipment stays there longer. You're in. Like you get into a rhythm. You can knock out 5 days of work, and it would take you 8 days on individual day projects.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and yes, mobilization crushes you in this business.
Well, just in rhythm, right? Like, if a guy can show up and do an 8-hour workday of actual work and not 6, that's a huge difference.
It is.
And when they know exactly what they're going to do, you don't have to have that 20-minute powwow every morning about the layout, the structure of this. It's been done for the week. Touch base, you're good to go. Boom, nail it out.
So what you would tell me is refine and get better at the process right now.
Yeah, I would use the 3 words that I live by, man. And you're already using some of them, right? Like, what can I eliminate? What are tasks that we're doing either individually or as a team that just are wasting time? We think they're productive, but they're not. And be very honest with yourself. What can I automate? Which you're already kind of doing with some of your forms. You're looking at how to automate that and remove the human aspect of, subcontractors. Well, there's other areas of business that you can do the same thing with. And then what can I delegate, whether it be to another team member within your team or third-party companies that can assist your business.
That's great. Well, thanks for the advice, Ryan.
Yeah. And for you as an owner, I would say use those. I look at those 3 words at literally every area of our business. Is this a task that I can eliminate? If the answer is no, can I automate it? If the answer is no, can I delegate it? And if the answer is no, then I know I have to personally do it. But I have to hit 3 no's in order for it to say, I'm going to do that task.
That's a great framework.
Yeah. Oh, man, we've been talking forever, man. This is going to be a long episode. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. At a certain point, I think you're going to have your 2:00 call, right?
Well,
yeah. We're 20 minutes out on that.
That was 40 minutes ago. It's 2:00 your time. It's going to be 3:00 my time.
Oh, geez. So you missed it?
Now, I mean, hey, these people found me through the podcast, so I tell them I was making a podcast interview like that. Right? Like this is what we do. We got them excited to even work with us in the first place. So we'll make it right by them. Yeah, I don't want to get into Joe Rogan territory where someone opens it up and goes, Jesus, 3 hours. I'm not listening to that. Like I love Joe Rogan, but I like watching his clips on Twitter because I don't want to watch 3 hours.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So one last topic that I want to talk about real quick, because you kind of made it a point to say about this. And I think there's a lot of guys out there going into 2024 that are scratching their head, but you've got a process for hiring and then when to hire the certain roles as an owner operator that's worked really well for you this last year and a half. You want to touch on that real quick?
Well, it just goes back to sort of what I've talked about this whole time. I mean, my perspective was, look, I'm 32 years old. I still got a lot of energy left in me. I want to put on this owner operator hat and I want to be willing to do whatever my business needs me to do at that phase of growth. But I also don't want to be blinded by the fact that I like thinking I can do everything in the business. And so early on, I just really tried to pour gas on the fire. Like, where was I excited in the business? I tried to put myself in that situation, doing those things as much as I possibly could. And then once I felt like I was doing, 3, 4, 5 hours a day of something that just frustrated the crap out of me or felt like it wasn't the best use of my time, that's when I identified that I needed to hire. And for example, it's like, I noticed early on, and as much as you use an app like Jobber, that's what we use to send our invoices, and have online payment options. Like, there's a lot of people who just still want to write checks and they're like, where can I send this? So we don't have mail out here other than a PO box. We're still a pretty small town. So running to the PO box, grabbing a check, that's time. And if you are on a job that's 20 minutes east and your post office is 20 minutes west of where you live, like that's a 40-minute drive if you're trying to go pick up a check and leave a job, and vice versa. The other way, if you've got to drive back to your job to work that day, like you just lost whatever that is, 80 minutes of time. And I think that's an extreme example right there. But my point is like, you're never going to grow a business just going to pick up a check and depositing that check into the bank long term. Nobody else is going to get the work early on. And, something I took a lot of pride in early on is just like building relationships in the local market. And so I felt like that was the best use of my time, is to go get the work. And then the second best use of my time in the early days before I had field employees was to fulfill the work. So I just focused on those two things, and everything else outside of that, I hired somebody who I knew, like, she was a very hard worker. She had a great background, and I just gave her trust in the beginning. I didn't give her a lot of like rules and guidelines to follow. Like, here's what you have to follow. Here's what you have to do. I just said, look, I need this done, and I'm going to rely on you as a teammate to help me grow this business. There's an opportunity here, and I believe that we can grow this business together. Because going back to what I said earlier, I like working on a team. Mm-hmm. So there's something about millennials and Gen Z. It's like not a ton of people like want to, like people want to feel a part of something, right? It's like, let's go build Bear Claw together. They don't always want to be told what to do. Maybe some people do, but if you've got an entrepreneurial hat and if you're an early employee at a startup, you likely are going to have to be entrepreneurial. And so my approach has always been, look, I'm going to put my trust in you until you give me a reason not to. So to this day, 18 months in, I told her that from the very beginning. You have my trust. And she has not done one thing to eliminate that trust. And we work very well together. And then the same happened with our.
That's some valuable information right there. I think too many owners make employees earn the trust, which creates a brick wall between them and the employee, instead of giving them the trust up front.
It's my personality. It's how I approach life. Like, I'm going to naturally give somebody the trust until they give me a reason not to. And I think there's different styles of leadership. And I've observed good leaders of good companies, and I've tried to box myself into doing things that aren't natural to me. And I'll tell you one thing that's very natural to me is like working together as a team. And so it's like, look, yes, I'm the one who started the business. I'm the founder, or whatever you want to call it. Look, my personal perspective is, don't call yourself CEO right out the gate. I think it's stupid. You don't need a title. Your business isn't big enough to pay a CEO, right? You are literally the sales guy. You're the lead operator, and humble yourself enough to fulfill those roles. Can you hire those eventually? Yes. But those are the roles you're filling in the early days. And then in the beginning, it's like, look, I'm not going to hire you as a COO because our business can't afford a COO, but you are going to manage the office operations. So it's like, your title is going to be office operations manager because that's what you're going to do. Yeah. And I'm going to be field operations manager, and we're going to work together, and we're going to grow this business.
Yeah. And I really think for a growing business, and I don't care what field you're in, the last job an owner should give up is sales. I cannot tell you, Austin, how many people call like Skid Steer Nation, and I still take well over 50% of the sales calls if I'm available. And there's an overwhelming number of people that either A, go, is this Ryan? Because they've seen a YouTube video or listened to the podcast. And they're like, kind of like, damn, I got the guy, or you tell them like, hey, call anytime. My name's Ryan. I actually own the company. I'm happy to help whenever you can. And they're like, oh shit, you're the owner. And like, it just increases the trust of the company in their eyes when they're talking to the man that like, hey, if I mess up, that's a reflection of me. And they know that. And like, so I always think sales should be the last thing a business owner gives up.
Yes, I agree 100%. I was actually talking to a very successful entrepreneur out in San Diego a couple of weeks ago. And he's like, well, one thing I would tell you is get out of the skid steer faster than you think you should, and do sales longer than you think you should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you were to go and do sales do all the estimates and sales, and then do all of, cause you're starting to go check on the crews, right? and you do all the final walkthroughs with the customer, they don't care who did the work. Like you're the first face and the last face they see. That's what's important.
Well, and I'll tell you one thing like that I've realized early on. Yes, I can operate and I love operating, but my mentality is like move fast and break things. I think that's like how I approach life. I'd like going fast in whatever I do. And even on that federal project, like I had some friends who I subcontracted and they were like, Austin, you got to slow down. So like, I don't think I'm actually the best like field crew lead for that reason. Like I can get people motivated, but when I'm in the equipment, I want to move fast and I want to go and I tend to break things, right? Whereas our lead operator right now, I've just entrusted him and I've already had this conversation with him. You're the field lead and I want you to set the example for how we should operate the equipment because like his perspective is slow as smooth and smooth as fast. And he's so efficient.
To you. Be like, there's a reason the Navy SEALs use slow as smooth, smooth as fast, Austin. You got to embrace that a little bit.
I do, but at the same time, it's once again going against my natural instinct. So my perspective is just keep moving fast, like go get the work for them and let somebody else lead something that I'm naturally not going to be good at because I want to go too fast all the time.
Yep. See, and that's good that you know yourself that well.
Well, thanks. And I guess like back to your original question, it's my approach to hiring is, look, I see these people as team members. I don't see this as like a hierarchy by any means. Like Bear Claw is something that's bigger than Austin. And it's also bigger than, the team members I have working on our team. And we are working together to create something bigger than ourselves. And it's like, my role is not any more important than your role and your role isn't any more important than mine. And I think that's something I see just like, I don't necessarily think it's wrong or right. It's just not my perspective to just be like this hierarchical leader.
And it's real simple, Austin. Like it's a question I've asked guys numerous times over the last few years. Like, not that you should, but could you take a week vacation in the middle of your busy season? And
no, but I don't want to
be successful. No, I'm not saying you want to. Could you walk away for 5 days? And could your office manager and field op manager, could the business operate clean for 5 days without you around?
At this point, yes, as long as the work is scheduled. But my sales process would go down.
Right. But majority of people say, no, they can't do that. Right. And I'm like, well, then you don't own a business. You own a job. And that's okay. Right. If you're cool with that, keep doing what you're doing. But if you want to grow and scale and like get 3-4 crews and like have a business, like the litmus test is, can it survive without you? And I'm not saying it's thriving. I just said surviving. Like when my father got sick and I was taking care of him 5-6 days a week, 3 hours out of town, I was doing very little work. Like my team was running everything. And like, yeah, our sales naturally decreased because we weren't on top of the marketing metrics as fast. We weren't on top of some of the things as fast. But the business survived. We still hit numbers we needed to hit. Where if it would have been just me and I never grew my team and I was just handling all aspects of the business, it would have closed. And that's
for sure.
That's the difference, right? So surviving and thriving are not the same things, but can your business survive without you in the middle of the peak season? If the answer is no, then start looking at your processes and start looking at your team members and start realizing that they are team members and you have to trust them and not just tell them what to do because they're not your children.
Yeah, that's the truth. They're human beings and they're grown adults. And yeah, that's always been my perspective is like, you got my trust until you give me a reason not to. And it's worked well up to this point. I mean, I feel like people take ownership in sort of like what's part of their responsibility. And I don't try to step over that line. It's like, if you tell me this is the best way you think is to do something, like as long as it's getting done, I do not care at all. I'm going to trust you with that process. And if you say that this is how it needs to be done, then let's do it and let's get it done. And I'll do my part.
Yeah,
in my lane.
Since the first business I owned, I've told every manager, anyone that's ever managed people for me, and I'm like, if you have a sound reason that you believe is a sound reason for the actions you take, I will never be angry at you. If I ask you why you did this and you say because of A, B, C, and D, we're good. I don't have to agree with it, and I could still think it's the wrong thing. That will be a separate discussion. But I just don't want someone saying, "Oh, I just didn't like the way he was doing it." Like, no. That's not good enough. Like, if you're going to make decisions that affect other people, like what's the reasoning behind it? So if there's no reason, then we have a problem. If there is a reason, then we can look at, was it the right answer? And what I found is that training after that, after we get past that, we can have a conversation where after a year, these guys were thinking like me and making decisions as if I was the one working, because we had spent so much time reviewing the decisions they made the first year they worked for us. But I invested that time and that trust into them, and I gave them the liberty to make decisions without fear of being fired or whatever else, because if it was the wrong decision, but as long as they could justify that they were thinking and had the business best in their decision.
Yeah, and that brings up something that's very important. I feel like, especially in the field, is like people have to have the freedom to make some mistakes early on. It's like inevitable that people are going to make the mistakes. But the second you blow up on that person and start cussing them out up and down, like nobody wants to work for that person. Nobody wants to work with that person. Yeah, if somebody did something like very wrong, of course you got to address it. But it's like, dude, if we're doing a final grade on something and you do it different than I want to do it, and if I come back and check on the job and it's not done right, like let's just talk about like why we should do it differently. Or I want to hear your thought process on why did you do it this way? And why do you think it should be left like this? Let's start there. And then let's talk through like, okay, here's why we shouldn't. And maybe there was just a part that you missed in training, right? And something I've been willing to say before is like, look, that's on me because we didn't train you up front. That's on me, or that's on our lead operator, right? We missed that obviously in training, and we'll take responsibility of that. And one thing I have is like, the first time you do something wrong, it's a learning lesson. The second time it's a mistake. So let's just not let it happen again.
Yeah. And the third time is a habit. So it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah. Third time you might be out.
But it's like, I don't know if you're old enough to remember this movie and what our listeners are, but like Days of Thunder, right? Tom Cruise was the NASCAR driver in Days of Thunder. You ever watch that movie?
No, I'm actually not a movie guy. I'm that guy who like, we turn on a movie at night and I literally fall asleep like that.
But basically he's the hotshot driver, and he runs a little reckless. He's fast. He wins a lot of races. And his pit driver's like, you're burning through tires. You're doing this wrong. He's like, no, you just got to adjust to the way I drive. So they go out and do a test, 50 laps his way, 50 laps the pit driver's way. And the tires last longer, and he's 4 seconds faster driving. Like, again, slow is smooth, learning and adapting. Like, but you got to let him run it their way for a minute to figure out, oh, maybe he does know what he's talking about. So
yeah, for sure.
Well, we are pulling in on 2 hours, which is unprecedented territory for the Skid Steer Nation podcast. So somebody's got a lot of work done listening to this, or nobody's listened to this last 2 minutes at all. I don't know which one is true. So if you're still listening, do me a favor, send us a message on social media, write it in the reviews, do something. Let us know that you made it through the whole 2-hour session here, because I'd be intrigued to know how many guys actually made it. I bet more do than not, just because of the time in a machine. But Austin, thanks so much for pulling some time off today, joining the show and digging deep into your business. I always love it when guys are willing to be open and honest and a little vulnerable about where they're at, where they're going, and not afraid to hide stuff. So I appreciate it. I think that's where the learning occurs for you and for everybody else and for myself.
Yeah, man, I appreciate what you're doing, and it's great to meet you, Ryan. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, if you were intrigued by this episode and a lot of the different concepts we talked about, and you want to learn more about being a better business owner, head over to groundbreakinggrowth.com. Sounds just the way spelled just the way it sounds, groundbreakinggrowth.com. You can see a little bit what our consulting and coaching business looks like, the things that we focus on. We want to teach you how to define your business, profit your business, and then scale your business. If you like what you see, fill out the form to have a call with none other than myself to see if we're a good fit for each other. So until the next episode, guys, stay warm because it's January, and keep the skid steers tracks down.